This is RTV6 News at 11, working for you.
Tonight, a teenage boy is hospitalized fighting for his life, and a teenage girl is dead after the car they were in went off the road and ended up in a pond on the southeast side. Thanks for joining us here at 11 o'clock. I'm Nicole Griffin. A total of 4 teenagers were in that car, and tonight an IMPD officer is being credited for his heroic efforts after he pulled 2 of them from the water. He is walking us through the moments he jumped in to try to save their lives.
So it was about 7 p.m. I was out on patrol in a neighborhood right in that area.
We have 1 car in the water, total 4 patients.
This is the call that came over the police scanner around 7 p.m. Saturday.
2 were trapped in the vehicle.
When it came over the radio that there was a car submerged with a couple people trapped inside.
Officer Jared Allen was one of the first to respond to the scene. Immediately, witnesses told him there were still 2 people trapped in the car.
I just wanted to get out there and get to them. I didn't know how long they'd already been in the water.
Allen, who is a 3-year veteran with the department, was a collegiate swimmer and went through water rescue training in the police academy. But this was the first time he put his skills to use.
I had a rough idea of where the car might be. I mean, I'm 6'6", so I used my length to an advantage. I put my feet down, finally was able to find the top of the car. After that, I started doing some controlled dives down, was able to find some openings and start reaching around and seeing if I could find the kids.
They pulled 1 victim from the water, working cardiac arrest.
Allen was able to pull a teenage girl from the backseat of the car at 7:05. He brought her to the shore where emergency crews took over.
Rescued one of the kids and then went back with another officer to get the other one.
Okay, we have 2 IMPD officers in the water. A 3rd is assisting at the shore. They've located the car. We have 1 unaccounted for victim in the water.
At 7:08, he was able to pull a 16-year-old boy from the back seat. Both victims were rushed to area hospitals, but just after 8 o'clock, the teenage girl died from her injuries.
I'm sorry. We did everything we could. I just wish that it had a better outcome than it did. So we did everything we could in the moment.
Despite the outcome, Officer Allen is now receiving support for his heroic actions and giving the 2 teens a chance to fight for their lives.
We've had some bad press lately, as the police around the country have, so it feels good to get a little bit of thanks. But, I mean, it's what most of us expect of all the other officers around us and what the community expects from us.
Investigators say the 17-year-old driver and another 16-year-old passenger are in good condition. Witnesses did report seeing the car traveling at a high rate of speed on Fry Road before hitting a tree and going into the pond. IMPD is still investigating why the car left the road. This tragic crash has impacted so many lives. Several friends of the teens are members of Indian Creek Church, located near Franklin Central High School on the southeast side. The church held its regular Sunday evening services, but tonight they also took time to remember the girl killed in the crash and the 3 other teens who were injured. Family members of those teens were invited to the service to share prayers with the community.
We just wanted to be the church. We wanted to be who we're called to be, and to be a spot here in the community that folks who are hurting and broken and have got some questions, that this is the place that they can come and felt welcome to do so.
After the church service, several people lit lanterns and sent them into the skies in honor of the teenagers. Now to your Storm Team 6 forecast. Meteorologist Kyle Mounds standing by. Kyle, another humid night out there.
Yeah, it was a very warm afternoon as well. We made that jump, Nicole, back into the 80s today, and it is still stuffy out there tonight. Not only do we still have our temperature at 76 degrees in the city, but we have very little wind, and that humidity remains sky high, 82% with that dew point in the lower 70s. So that's giving us that tropical feel all across central Indiana. We've got temperatures in the 70s here after 11 o'clock. It's 78 in Muncie and Bloomington coming in at 74 degrees. Satellite and radar shows the story for the night. It's going to be quiet. I don't think we'll have any rumbles of thunder to wake you up. And as you head out the door in the morning, it will be mostly cloudy, dry, and warm. Temperatures in the lower 70s, already back into the mid 70s as we get to 9 a.m. Nicole, in just a few minutes, I'll detail the return of those rain chances in our forecast.
All right, Kyle, talk to you soon. The days of legally driving while holding a cell phone are about to come to an end for Indiana drivers. This coming Wednesday, July 1st, Indiana's hands-free driving law will go into effect. The new law will allow cell phone use only with hands-free or voice-operated technology. A driver would be allowed to use a handheld phone in an emergency. Violators will be subject to a fine but will not lose points on their license while the law is phased in from July 2020 to July 2021. Some other new laws taking effect on July 1st, a law that separates teacher evaluations from required standardized tests, and a law that will effectively ban panhandling in Indianapolis. People will be barred from panhandling within 50 feet of an ATM, entrance to a business or restaurant, parking garage, parking meter, or public monument. The ACLU of Indiana has called the law unconstitutional. Now to our continuing coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on Indiana. The state health department reports 3 more deaths. 2,427 Hoosiers have now died from the coronavirus. Nearly 45,000 Hoosiers have tested positive for the virus. More than 470,000 people have been tested in Indiana, with 9.5% testing positive. Local groups are coming together to stamp out hunger despite challenges brought on by the pandemic. Troy Washington is working for you to show us some of the solutions they are coming up with.
We really pivoted. Our usual way of doing things is that we were sending free meals to congregate meal sites. So shelters, after-school programs, faith-based programs, boys and girls clubs, things like that. But now, sharing a meal together isn't a good idea. So we have started packaging individual meals, a family pack of meals, 4 meals together, sandwiches. We are making over 5,000 sandwiches a day.
Right now, Second Helpings is relying on a new normal to continue putting food on the tables of Hoosier families, since it's a fact that 1 in 6 families struggle with food insecurity.
We've gotten to hear more of the stories, especially with the home delivery. People that we had a feeling that were out there but weren't sure how to serve. So the disabled people that can't cook, or the people that only have a microwave or only have a stovetop. And, we've started asking questions that you would never think you would ask somebody.
Norris Bisnoggle says though the style of serving has evolved, it's allowed the organization to really get to know each family and their specific needs. It's also opened other doors.
We weren't getting the food from the caterers and the big parties. Sadly, there have been, I think it's 12 now, restaurants that have closed during this COVID time that were generous enough to open their freezer doors to us, and refrigerators and their dry goods and things that we have rescued all of that.
Aside from food rescue, other outlets have stepped in to help out.
Wholesalers that were selling to the grocery stores, had excess food. The Department of Education purchases food for the whole school year. They knew that they wouldn't need that food that we've gotten. The USDA has done a program with farmers where they're buying commodities.
So while the pandemic may have changed things, it's certainly not slowing things down when it comes to making sure food is on the table and stomachs stay full. Working for you, Troy Washington, RTV6.
Troy, thank you. Tonight, food banks across central Indiana have a critical need for supplies. This comes as thousands of Hoosiers are still struggling to put food on their table during the pandemic. Gleaner's Food Bank is serving more than twice as many food insecure families. In an effort to meet the level of need for the COVID-19 family box distribution model, they need a minimum of $500,000 in weekly donations. The CEO says buying food costs 8 times the amount as the same period last year due to severely disrupted food sourcing supply chain. He says the economic recovery for Hoosier households that Gleaner serves will likely last 2 years or more. We talked to a volunteer this weekend at a Gleaner's mobile food pantry site who says at the end of the day, we are all humans. It's important that we work together.
There's always a need to feed families, and we don't want anybody ever to go hungry, but some of the economic impact, children not being in school and receiving those meals has definitely increased the need. And there was a lot of fear in the beginning too. There still is a lot of fear.
If you are struggling and need food, there are several opportunities this week. Tomorrow in Decatur County, food will be distributed at Greensburg Elementary School from 4 to 6. On Tuesday, you can visit the Hamilton County Fairgrounds also from 4 to 6 or Greencastle Christian Church. To help Hoosier families that rely on Gleaners, just click the Give tab on their website.
There you go, man.
Some daycare providers across central Indiana are still closed due to the pandemic, but as they prepare their reopening plan, they are receiving help in the form of thousands of dollars in grant money. Recently, St. Mary's Child Center received $20,000 from the Come Back Stronger Fund. The grant program is supported by Early Learning Indiana and Lilly Endowment. So far, more than 550 child care providers in Indiana have received grants totaling $7.6 million. At St. Mary's, which is located downtown on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Street, they are using the money to help protect the staff members and the children once they return.
We serve vulnerable children. About 93% come from poverty. So 56% of like the 200 kids that come, we raise full scholarships for. So we never have anything extra. And so now we're looking at getting no-touch thermometers, getting all kinds of the masks, getting everything that we need to have everything be safe and good for everyone, but it's a lot.
They also plan to use the money to add additional staff that will help with the daily screening process and plan to add dividers inside their office area. St. Mary's Child Center plans to reopen on August 3rd. A bombshell report leads to major questions. Did Russian spies try to pay assassins to kill U.S. troops? And did President Trump keep quiet about it? The president's response coming up next.
Now at Wickerworks right here in Brownsburg.
This is RTV6 News at 11, working for you.
Tonight, President Trump is facing some criticism over his response to the New York Times report published this past Friday, saying that Russia was looking to pay the Taliban to kill U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Here's ABC's Andrew Dimber with the details.
President Trump responding today to a New York Times report that a Russian military unit secretly offered to pay the Taliban to kill American troops in Afghanistan. The Times also claiming President Trump was briefed on the findings. The president lashing out on Twitter, writing, "Nobody briefed or told me about so-called attacks on our troops in Afghanistan by Russia," adding, "Nobody's been tougher on Russia than the Trump administration." Last year, 23 U.S. troops died in Afghanistan, but whether any were targeted by Taliban fighters paid by Russian operatives is not known. A military official confirming to ABC News that Russian intelligence allegedly did offer to pay militants to kill U.S. service members, but did not know if the president had been briefed.
This is as bad as it gets, and yet the president will not confront the Russians on this score.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on ABC's This Week telling George Stephanopoulos it was totally outrageous that the president did not respond to the intelligence reports.
You would think that the minute the president heard of it, he would want to know more instead of denying that he knew anything.
She said top congressional leaders were not aware of the intelligence, but will be seeking answers to determine if the president was briefed. The president's former national security advisor telling CNN's Jake Tapper the president's reaction shows his fundamental focus is not on national security, adding that if the president had not been briefed, he should have been asking questions as soon as the Times report came out.
Call up the national security advisor, the director of national intelligence, somebody, and said, what's going on here? What are the facts? Now, if that didn't happen in the last 48 hours, that in and of itself is disturbing.
Andrew Dimber, ABC News, Washington, D.C.
Andrew, thank you. Another disturbing milestone in the fight against the coronavirus. Globally, there are now more than 10 million confirmed cases, 2.5 million of those here in the United States, which marked yet another new record, the highest number of COVID-19 diagnosed cases in a single day Saturday. Despite the spike, today Vice President Mike Pence downplayed the virus. He kept a scheduled appearance at a rally at a Dallas church. Meanwhile, in Jacksonville, Florida, 200 firefighters are now quarantined after 14 members test positive for COVID. Governor Ron DeSantis spoke today about the spiraling infections.
That positivity increase is really being driven by
a big increase over the last 3 weeks in individuals testing positive throughout the state of Florida in younger age groups.
The president, meanwhile, today took the day to play golf, but not before tweeting video from supporters heard chanting white power. Trump's campaign faces scrutiny after a video obtained by the Washington Post appears to show staffers taking down signs promoting social distancing at his comeback Tulsa, Oklahoma rally last week. The campaign responded saying the rally was, quote, in full compliance with local requirements. Life stands to change for a lot of people in the United States depending on how the Supreme Court rules this week. Scholarships, voting, abortion rights, and whether the president must turn over his tax returns are all set to be decided. Joe St. George shows you how the rulings will affect your family.
It's quiet right now on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., but that will change next week. Major rulings are anticipated as early as Monday morning. Expected case number 1, changes to the separation of church and state. Well, this case is out of Montana, which bans in its constitution public aid to religious schools. Similar bans exist in 38 states. The Supreme Court ruling could allow students in religious schools the ability to seek private scholarships funded through state income tax credits. Expected case number 2, changes to abortion rights. This case is out of Louisiana and challenges a law that says abortion providers must have admitting privileges in hospitals. Abortion rights supporters say this will close clinics because not all providers work with hospitals. Expected case number 3, this one is out of Colorado, and it asks, can state electors to the Electoral College vote for whomever they want? Per tradition, these electors vote for the presidential candidate with the most votes in the state, but some say that doesn't have to be the case. And finally, expected case number 4, does President Trump need to turn over his tax returns when subpoenaed? It could open the president up to new controversy prior to the election. Opinions are set to be issued on Monday and Tuesday of next week, although the court won't tell us which days they're issuing exact rulings. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
A true summer feel has returned here in central Indiana, and we're really not going to get much relief in the overnights either, as we're going to have those temperatures settling only to around 70 degrees. And tonight we are still in the middle 70s with those clear to partly cloudy skies and a very light wind. It's 76 downtown, 74 in Kokomo and Bloomington, and there's where we will land going into your Monday morning. Temperatures right around that 70-degree mark. Again, I think it's going to be dry out there tonight. As we look at your Monday planning forecast, temperatures will warm quickly. We're into the middle 80s for your lunch hour there at noon. Just a light southeast wind, and then as we get into the heating of the day, that's when we'll start to notice a few more of those showers and thunderstorms. And I do think the coverage tomorrow will be a little greater than what we had today. We really only saw that rain first half of the day across much of central Indiana. TrueCast, though, by 1 o'clock tomorrow shows the clouds increasing, but then again, about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we start to see a few more of those thunderstorms developing. We don't right now have a risk of severe weather. However, we can't rule out that some of those storms have some gusty winds with them. Certainly some heavy rainfall is something to watch for, and as we get to sunset, then many of those storms should fade away for us going into our Monday night. Temperatures, though, they will heat up even more tomorrow before the storms fire. We could even see a couple of locations there around Terre Haute and Lafayette getting into the lower 90s, 88 in Indy, and with the heat index and all that mugginess in the air, it's going to feel like the lower 90s statewide, and the muggy meter is going to continue to run quite high in the humid to very humid range through the next several days, right on into next weekend, the way it looks right now. And with that, we're going to wring out some more rainfall between now and Wednesday especially. You can see TrueCast here as we put it in motion. Not necessarily washouts, but rounds of rain that will add up to about an inch or two of rainfall additionally to what we've already picked up here. And you get under a couple of storms, you could see more than that as we go through the next couple of days. So localized flooding, something to keep an eye on. 7-day planning forecast, though, very summer-like here, as we'll have those high temperatures in the middle to upper 80s here through the first half of the week. And then those rain chances, they start to come down a little bit on Thursday as we'll finally get that front to kind of clear the area. About a 30% chance of rain there. Then just spotty showers and storms here, looks like, as we get into Friday and next weekend, which, of course, is the 4th of July. For Saturday, right now, things are looking pretty good. Just going to be quite toasty out there with high temperatures getting back into the lower 90s, and that sticks around into Sunday. Let's check in now with Dave First.
And I'm Dave First. Beautiful afternoon at Meridian Hills. Who's ready for a round of golf and maybe a hole-in-one? Or 8? That story coming up in our Sports Extra Spotlight.
You can find new roads with confidence.
There's a bizarre trend on the city's north side, one that every golf player hopes will continue. It's Aces Wild. Sports Director Dave First with the Sports Extra Spotlight.
Meridian Hills Country Club has been around for nearly 100 years. And during that time, it's never seen anything like this. It all started with Brian Acton the day after the club reopened, a hole-in-one on the par 3 12th. Then it was David Draga on the same hole a few days later. And then 3 weeks later, over on the two-way radio.
I'm giving a lesson, and all I catch is, hole-in-one. So I sort of back off my lesson. I sort of whisper into the room. I'm like, did we just have another one?
Sure enough, it was Dr. Don Shelburne on the par 3 15th, a 9-iron from 119 yards out. The rest is almost literally like clockwork. 2 days later, 88-year-old Dr. Jack Williams got his first ace on the par 3 7th. And the next day, it was Dr. Tom Leipzig back on the 12th. And then another 2 days later on the 7th from Tom Rush. It makes you wonder, what's in the wind at Meridian Hills?
I will say this. With being closed in that month of April, I know our grounds crew, and I mean this sincerely, they were able to do a lot of things on the golf course that they probably could not do if we would have stayed open. And right now the golf course is in the best stinking shape I've ever seen.
Scott Kaysen would agree. On June 14th, he aced the 7th with a 9-iron. And most recently, Greg Sheridan with a hole-in-one back on the 12th.
That green is the one of the green that if you hit to the left of the green, everything sort of kicks to the right. So we call it the membership bounce. So hit to the left, got lucky.
Make it 8 hole-in-ones in 8 weeks. They all get their name added to the club plaque, a season-ending dinner, and more importantly, scholarships to many of the college kids who work at the course. Still, though, 8 in 8 weeks?
Some of the pros that follow me on social media, they think we're still using those coffee cup size holes. Some of them think we have three holes per par 3.
It's about perfection. Perfect greens, perfect conditions, capped by a perfect shot. And as you might imagine, the amount of play here at Meridian Hills has picked up over the last couple of weeks, last couple of months, really. In fact, they're doing almost double the activity they usually do this time of year, which can make finding a tee time. Oh, yeah, tee time. Could I get one for next week? Almost as difficult as the hole-in-ones themselves. 2 o'clock's perfect. Day First, RTV6 Sports. Yeah, foursome. Yeah.
Deposit bonus. DraftKings. Game on.
Money raised at a drag brunch event today for Pride Month is now going to benefit a local organization fighting for equality for Black lives. This ticketed event was held at Hotel Tango. Proceeds from ticket sales and a portion of the Queen's tips will go to benefit Black Lives Matter Indy. Organizers say today was a chance to shed light on recent events while giving back to a cause that is close to their hearts.
With the current climate and everything, Hotel Tango has always been a place of inclusivity. And I have a lot of friends who work in the industry, who have been out of work, and everyone who's been waiting to get back to work and wanting to get back to work. I wanted to offer my friends and my community people a safe space to do that, and also give back to a cause that is near and dear to a lot of our hearts.
There were 2 events today. Tickets bought you 2 cocktails and a box of brunch, and due to current restrictions, only 30 people were allowed inside. Kyle.
Well, we got a lot of dry time over the next several days, but some rain chances in there as well. Could have some heavy rainfall. And right now, next weekend for the 4th of July, looking a little toasty and mainly dry.
All right, Kyle, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Have a great night.